Guten Tag, dames en heren. Afrikaans, close enough to German. Thank you very much. I feel very, very privileged to be here today. What I'm witnessing here, it's my first time in 𝗝𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃 at the Buchinger clinic. And it's a bit difficult to come after you, Yvonne, but yeah, I'll try my best there. It's a wonderful, incredible advance in this world's treating of any illnesses. What is wonderful is to see the human side of it, which is unfortunately a lot of times forgotten in our normal hospitals and clinics. Françoise, thank you very much for what you're doing. It's wonderful. The publication that I've seen that you've sent me before is also extremely important. Thank you to your husband, Raymond, and Mr. Mayer. That's wonderful opportunity. It's been incredible, an incredible ride since 2003. I've been all over the newspapers, the magazines, in Germany as well. I remember a time where I went onto the main page of a German news magazine. There was first title was Trump story, then Putin story, then my story. Couldn't believe it. Had to laugh. Yeah. When you know me better, I'm a surfer on water since the age of 9, so I don't like to be in the spotlight, really. But what has been happening is makes so much sense that I'm not about to stop. So what happened to be in a spotlight like this and being contacted by people all over the world now? It started in France, but patients, and then an incredible amount of doctors, which has been incredible from the start in France, but doctors from all over the world, speaking Germany, quite a few, Australia, South Africa, America. It's just incredible. So, 2003, I had a very sudden kidney cancer, 7-centimeter tumor on the left kidney, and went like everybody else at 2 o'clock after the meal. I went to do a wee, and it came red, sort of fluorescent red, and it's quite a shock. And very minutes after, I had very strict pains behind my kidney, and of course it was pieces of tissue going into the bladder, basically, that was blocking the flow. So I had an emergency operation nearly 36 hours after, and just to make things even spicier, it didn't stop there. Very soon I had a 70-year-old in the next room. I had the same operation, a few hours away from me, but basically the same thing. And 2 days after, he was on his way to the shower. And I was not able to move at all at the same time, 2 days after. And the nurses were getting very cross with me, because they say, "Oh, you're young. Look at this guy. He's going to the shower." And I was like, I was trying, but, in fact, I was losing my blood from the inside. Medication was actually doing this. And by the time they realized that, my blood pressure went down so low that they had to bring emergency side 7 pockets of blood to, so that was on. So I looked at my doctors, a very friendly guy, and to this day, he's been a very good friend. He realized that very quickly, and I looked in his eyes the second time he came around, and I thought, he's not gonna, he's doing his job, and he's doing his job perfectly well, but he's not going to sort me out. I'm not gonna get better. So I decided to study what was available on the market. very early on with, you know, what sugar was doing to your body, basically. The very early stage of angiogenesis or anti-angiogenesis, the natural ways. And they were expecting some metastases, you know, in the body quite quickly, 3-6 months after I was told. And nothing came until about 9 years later. So by 5 years, I was told, you're completely cured. And they even showed me, this is the new French publication, basically, for what I had. And it said, well, I was perfectly healthy. So I sort of relaxed a bit. At this time, I went back, you know, after the first operation in 2003, I was back in my airplane 4.5 months, almost 5 months after, doing short haul, coming to Berlin, Paris, Biarritz, Oslo. And by the time, 9 years later, I was on the Boeing 777 going to New York. It was beautiful. You know, we sit in New York on this famous place with lots of colors and on the walls, and then you come down to breakfast and you've got all sorts of different things in America, and one of the things is donuts. Donuts, yeah, I was a student in America when I was a kid as well, so I was sort of kind of used to donuts. And in America, I don't know how to do it. They have colors, it's not even written in a dictionary on those donuts. So it's wonderful. And one day I had a pain behind the operation, which, by the way, had nothing to do with the first operation. And I quickly went to see my friend who looked after me from day one, radiologist. And quickly he said, after I returned from the flight, he said, you've got nothing, it's perfectly clear. Just looking at the place that was a bit sore. And then he looked, well, I might as well see the whole thing, look at the whole, you know, body. And he saw a couple of things that, compared to the a few years before, that wasn't there. And in fact, what I had is those metastases growing into the lungs. So after a few weeks, we decided to have the first of lung operation called thoracoscopy, which you come through the side and basically you pick up whatever you have to pick up, cut the middle lobe. We have 3 lobes on the right side, by the way, and 2 on the left side, if we're normal. Yeah, I did some eradication, and all was well. 5 months after, I was back in my airplane. I was just incredible because nobody could believe this. And it went on, and a little bit than a year after, we found more. This time, both sides, and many more. In fact, we counted up to 26 nodules, both sides. And this time, my oncologist was very, very worried. My oncologist is a fantastic guy. His name is 𝗝𝗲𝗀𝗃. For 4 years, he was the chairman of ESMO, the European Society of Medical Oncology. He's now the second to the president of Institut 𝗝𝗲𝗃 and the leader in Europe of treatment on kidney cancer. He had proposed to me early on what is still today the only thing on the market in terms of therapies, the after chemotherapy or radiotherapy. That wouldn't be an option for me because it doesn't work for that type of cancer. So we had to decide between anti-angiogenesis, anti-angiogenics. There's about 10 of them on the market, about 30 molecules or more. The most common one is Avastin. It came on the market in 2004, treats about 4, maybe 5 cancers now. But I said to him, look, I'm doing something else. And can we just wait a little bit and maybe do something else? Go for perhaps more mechanical ways of taking those nodules out. He wasn't so chuffed, and he was very worried. Yeah, so he decided, oh, we can do it. You know, we can meet Pierre, one of the very good doctors in Paris, and I went for what you call a double thoracotomy. Thoracotomy, well, you go through the body, you take the entire lung out, and mechanically you remove the nodules one by one, you clean up, and you bring it back in, and yeah, glue it. So that was, to me, sort of emergency procedure in aviation, panic time. So what I had done until then is a lot of research since 2003, and of course it increased totally by 2010. So now we're talking 2012, 2 years after I really started this whole research on anti-angiogenesis, on fasting, on ketogenesis, and something else. I was amazed by what I found very quickly on the sites. Otto Buchinger was one of them. I was truly captivated by his story. And of course, I got onto 𝗲𝗲 𝗲𝗀, was all over the news already, publications. And 𝗲𝗲 is a very good friend. Every time I go to Los Angeles, we have like a drink or a meal, and he even did a shot the other day because he's making a film, a big film that's going to come out in a few months. Even asked me to come and see one of his patients that he was following, a lady with very advanced cancer. And at the time, I didn't know 𝗲𝗲, and I just tried and tried and tried. It took me a few days to get to him, but eventually he was relaxed. It was summertime. He was at his family's side. Mama was cooking the pasta in Genova, and we did manage to speak for nearly half an hour over Skype, and he explained to me every moment that I was going to go through if I did a fast on water only. That's what I did. I said, 𝗲𝗲, I have 15 days, and then I have this operation. He says, well, you can go 12, 13 days, and this is what's going to happen. So here I go. My mind, my pilot mind went into procedure time and discipline. And I went from day to day to day to day. And I had written everything that 𝗲𝗲 was telling me. And amazingly, it was exactly what 𝗲𝗲 told me it was going to be. And I came out of there and went to Pierre for, like 3 days before and the operation. And Pierre is a surgeon, one of the best in France, most recognized. And he says, JJ, you look amazing. We've known each other for like 4 years. I've never seen you like this. I said, well, Pierre, yeah, I feel good. I feel very positive about all of this. And yeah, okay. And so let me see what the scan from this morning. So we looked at the scan. He looked at the scan. I already knew because I had talked about it in the morning with my radiologist. So he looked, and he looked a little bit bothered. So he took his glasses off, and he called his secretary and said, why don't you bring the scans from last year, 2 years ago, so that we, all you can have. And he looked, and okay, then he looked at me with his glasses on the table. I still remember it very well. And he said, is there anything that we don't know that you've been doing? Because in 37 years of practice, I've never seen this before. Well, I said, Pierre, Until this day, about 13 days ago, I stopped eating completely. Just water. No, what do you mean not eating? A little bit of, no, just water. Are you still alive? Can we still live after 13 days of not eating? I mean, a hidden camera. You know those hidden cameras? And that would have been really funny if we had one there. So anyway, that's the story. And I went into the operation with that. So, it was tough to recover, but, I did what I had to do. And then on the left side, so yeah, of course, I forgot to tell you what happened, because in 37 years, you hadn't seen that. In fact, I had 10 tumors on the right side. That's what he was looking at. And 5 of them were calcified. They were gone. And, why? Is it really because of that? Because of because of the size of the tumor? Because of the biology of the tumor? Thing is, they were gone. They were dead. So 3 months after, I had the second operation. And the second operation went well, but then I had so much, it was so difficult, and I was suffering so much that they gave me 3 or 4 different types of pills of medication, including in a drip. And when I went home, my tummy was like this. It was like this from here to there. First thing, I managed to go and see my doctor next to Biarritz, next home. And I told him, he touched and said, "Ooh." He looked at me, his eyes were round. He wasn't sure. He said, "Maybe we should try this." I said, "We're not going to touch any more medication. This is it. I'm going home with my wife." And I started fasting, water only, 17 days. 17 days in a row, water only. After a few days, the whole thing went normal. The pain went away very quickly, within halfway through. And my what do you call him? The manipulator was amazed by how quickly the results were going. And then I spoke to Walter, because Walter and I started talking, and he was amazed by the story, and I kept feeding him. And, well, now, we WhatsApp now, but before we sort of emailed. And then I said, this is the story, and this is the situation now. What's next? And he said, "Can you do 5 days, rest for 2 weeks, do another 5 days?" I said, "Walter, you're on, and I'll tell you exactly how it goes every single time." So I did for 3 months, nearly 4 months. I did 5 days every 3 weeks. That's tough, but it's bloody efficient. And then from those 4 months, almost, I did 5 days every month, or every 5 weeks, for over 6 months after those 3 months. So that's been almost a year. And I'm still here. If you look at the, that's what Bernard Escudier told me. He said, I said, "Bernard, you know the type of guy I am. I don't muck around. I need to know the truth. And only the truth, and straight in my face." But Bernard is a very diplomatic guy. He follows protocols that too many doctors don't follow. I will explain that. He said, "JJ, you're a strong-minded, what you do is incredible. Usually for your cancer, it's 3 years. life expectancy. But don't worry, some last a bit longer, 5 years, 6 years. I looked at him, so Bernard, it doesn't suit me. It's not good for me. So what I had adapted as well, because otherwise it's a bit much, is this concept of anti-angiogenesis. Angiogenesis, angio is a Greek term, blood vessels. Genesis, the multiplication in this sense. And when you have certain illnesses, the body sort of gets out of balance. Angiogenesis is a normal way of functioning for the body. When you're small, you need angiogenesis because you need to grow blood vessels to feed the body with all the nutrients. When you're a woman, you need angiogenesis when you have a baby, obviously to feed what it has to be fed. When you fall, you need angiogenesis because you need blood vessels to grow under the wound to heal. But otherwise, if the body gets out of balance, angiogenesis can be either positive or negative. You can grow blood vessels indefinitely, or you can have a lot less blood vessels that you should need. And this gets you going towards certain illnesses. Obviously, cancer is a multiplication of blood vessels that the body cannot control anymore. Judah Folkman was the doctor in the early 60s in America who found that out. The bigger the tumor, the more blood vessels there is. And so one of his main students, Dr. Wilhelmi, is the president of the Angiogenesis Foundation, started the foundation and the research, works with over 40,000 scientists and all sorts of different people who work in the field to get the research out. Funny enough, 15 years ago, or 17 years ago now, Wilhelmi was part of a team that was led, the principal investigator was 𝗲𝗲 on the very first anti-angiogenesis medication. They started on shark fins because they do not have blood vessels. It didn't go very well. That was the very beginning. Like a lot of research, takes time. What I did back in 2012, on the 21st September, I organized a conference, a multi-approach conference that had never been done in the world before. And I managed to get all these guys, Wilhelmi, Thomas Seyfried, who may be the father of ketogenesis in the US and elsewhere, Walter Longo, of course, Walter was there. And when I got a team together in my mind, and I took time to speak to everyone and respond, people responded. And I went to see 𝗲𝗲. Remember, he is the #1 specialist on kidney cancer in France, in Europe. He's in our planes, on our flights, every month, just about every month, to go and give conferences around the world. This is the Institut 𝗲𝗲_Roussy in Paris, the leading cancer center in Europe. They have a very good, big international team there. It's even led by the last 8 years by a Dutch guy in Paris. When you know how the French are very critical and and protective of their language and on the people who are there, it's incredible. The fact that 𝗲𝗲 said, well, maybe we should we should do something special. And I said, Bernard, I've got this project. Here you are. And he said, how's it possible? Well, I took time, but I took time to contact everyone. And Rainer, are you there? Stenger? Yeah, he was part of us. But he said, how are we going to do it? Because it's, it's difficult to bring all these people around. And I said, don't worry, I'll go and see my president at Air France. And I called, and he said, well, he had just come on board at Air France. And he said, look, I've read your letter. I didn't think he was, he was very busy just coming into Air France. And, he said, I read your letter 3 days after. He says, it's absolutely amazing. I'm not a biologist, but please come and explain to me. So I immediately phoned Bernard and I said, we're going to see the president. 2 weeks later, we were in his office. And we explained the whole thing. He said, give us a few days, we'll come back to you. And it was on. Air France decided, say, whatever you need, you tell us. So every single researcher, doctor, who gave their okay, we went to fetch him, business class, of course, all the way to where they were, and bring them back to the Institut Gustave-Roussy in Paris. We did that at the Institut Gustave-Roussy, a place that you would never dream of doing such a program that's got not much to do with the normal system that is very dear to the French authorities, to the German authorities, to the American authorities. It's actually very hard to step into that sort of thing. But it was stamped by the authorities themselves, which was incredible. Why am I doing this? Well, tell you what, since 2003, I went through so many difficult moments, and so many people came to help me without me asking. And maybe I spent between 1 and 4 hours a day, per day, to answer people from all over the world. This is my decision. Nobody tells me you can, you can't, or you should. Or and what has been happening is incredible, because I got these elements of a certain protocol. That's not my word. These are not my words. These are the words from the doctors. You built a protocol that no one else has thought about. What we're doing today is fantastic. Fasting is incredible. But my opinion is that fasting can be even more incredible when it's associated to a number of things. Angiogenesis is one of the main things. Ketogenesis is one of the main things. Birgit, thank you very much for doing what you did at the clinic, how she shows what to do for the patients. She said something very important. She said, a ketogenic diet can be misinterpreted, can be perhaps even dangerous. You can't go on, embark into a ketogenic diet without knowing what you're doing or being monitored. You can be very light. That's not going to do much to you. But if you do it very seriously, it's very important that you are being followed by someone who knows about it. And it does have results that are incredible. I mean, myself, I went through so many blood tests at the Institut Gustave-Roussy, or checked by these guys. And every time it came back the same way. Meaning, Francois, what you explained, what you showed, it's pretty much exactly the same. When you talk about white blood cells, the immune system, basically the engine room, as I call it, when you start a fast, if you do a blood test counting the white blood cells in the middle of that, white blood cells, red blood cells, stem cells that are very important. some doctors who don't know about this, you go and do a blood test and you go and see your normal doctor and you show him, he gets upset quickly. He gets afraid because there's a drop of it and your immune system is dropping. That's in his interpretation. But then when you finish, and if you do the blood test about 2 days or 3 days after the reintroducing the food, what you see, and it came back every single time, it was the same. That your immune system, your blood count, is actually higher than when we started. So it does that, absolutely, and it comes back. But it comes back for my case, but for other cases that we had, above the beginning. So that's very important. Angiogenesis is basically, what is it? If you can't go on and on and on about ketogenesis, when you're not fasting, I've got 11 minutes. I took a top. Let's check in airplane. Very quickly, we're talking about all sorts of complex molecules that now have a very efficient response to the body. It allows the body to function well again, basically. It doesn't cure you, it helps. Lycopene, everybody heard about lycopene now. The latest studies, it's one, I can't name everything, I don't have time. But all the studies, the precious studies that they've done on so many people, over 60,000 people, almost 20 years, they've shown that lycopene has a very important effect on several cancers, especially prostate, and eventually breast as well. Over 35% of prostate cancers, basically a reduction of that. But if you compare lycopene itself, if you make people take lycopene or the tomato itself, the tomato wins over lycopene. So there's a synergy of everything. It's why I'm calling synergy this whole thing. Fasting, anti-angiogenesis, ketogenesis. It's a synergy. And who has a phone or a tablet? Does everybody have a phone or a tablet here? Please raise your hand. Yes. Now, who goes to bed reading your tablet or your phone? Go ahead, please. Don't be shy. Some people read a book. Yeah. Well, research has been made. It took a long time. If you basically look at melatonin, that's part of the angiogenesis concept. Melatonin is very, very important. They found out that people who read their tablets, their phone, had the growing of melatonin basically much higher reading a book when you go to bed than if you read your tablet. And over a week, there's a drop of melatonin of about 55%. And some studies that are not published yet have been done on the airline as well, because people have great difficulties with sleeping and melatonin. The cancers, especially the breast cancer with our stewardesses, but we're not talking too much about it, obviously, because the industry has to be protected, of course. But, I mean, 35% is a big number of breast cancer increase. So that's part of melatonin research. And you've got a whole concept there that you can go and look itself on the Wilhelmi sites, Eat to Beat, basically. The last thing, 2 minutes. I was allowed 2 minutes for this. This is what I did, is the intake of a microalgae called spirulina. Spirulina is absolutely complete. It's the most complete food that exists in the world. It's green, it's a powder, it's a liquid. NASA has declared that for the other missions, they're going to use spirulina. The OMS has said it's the most complete food on earth. So I'm very well active in producing, in getting the best form of spirulina for people, because unfortunately it's like everything else. The world is getting more and more polluted, and you've got to get the right thing, basically. So what we're doing is the research. We have publications coming, international publications now on phycocyanin. Phycocyanin is one of the 4 pigments that are existing in spirulina. And pigments are very, very important. Wilhelmi says it. They've done studies with it. Papaya's got a very important pigment for women cancer. And so phycocyanin has been tested over a number of studies now on cancer itself for its anti-inflammatory but not only properties. So yeah, that's it.